Welcome to the podcast, Eye for Talent, the show where we have an eye for talent. I'm your host, Dylan, aka DJ Cereal Sauce. I'm a YouTube content creator, podcast host, although that one should have been pretty obvious. And what's the word? Producer. That's what they do. The people who make music, they're called producers, is what I've been told. I also do occasional Twitch streaming on the side when I really just have like 3 hours left to do whatever the hell I want. This isn't about me. This is about my guest. And my guest, geez, he does a lot of things, but he's opted to keep it to 4. Actor, podcast host, entertainer, and also a guest on a couple of episodes of Jubilee. If you've heard of that YouTube channel, you probably have. Welcome on, Percy Brown, a.k.a. the most charismatic man, a.k.a. DJ Long Walks on the Beach.
A.k.a. the Prince of Fresh Air.
That's the Prince of Fresh Air. Beautiful. How's it going, man?
I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you having me on. It's always nice to take a step back from the lights, the cameras, the microphone, and just, relax and, share the charisma with everybody else.
Yeah, it's nice to step away from the lights and the camera and the microphone and sit in front of a light with the camera on and a microphone in front of you right now.
Exactly. That's why they call me Mr. No Days Off. It's no days off.
He's like, no matter where I am, you'll catch me in front of a microphone, whether it's a shotgun mic or a boom mic or podcast mic.
I'll tell you this, man. I think I've been put on this earth to entertain, so I'm used to it. So
yeah, fair. I sometimes think about that with myself as well, because I look at like some of my other friends who do like content creation stuff, and I'm like, and then I look at like the things that I've done, and I'm like, man, I forgot that like I'm just an entertainer at heart, most humble man, entertainer at heart. I'm like constantly cracking jokes when people say anything.
Yeah. It takes a while to kind of get to that point where you realize it. But, for me, it's been, I say in the last like 3-4 years, I really kind of honed in on the fact that, yeah, this is what I'm meant to do. Although I've been doing it for a while. It takes a while to kind of get in that mindset of, yes, this is what I'm born to do. So.
Yeah, it's like I learned. I mean, it's one of those, like, I've known this for a long time, but I feel like in general, like a lot of the good things that I'm able to do, I primarily do through speaking. Whether that is being an entertainer or whether that's being a person who can speak really well for those who can't. Like recently, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because it's not important. That's not the point of this show. Saw a TikTok video, saw a person who I like who responded to that TikTok video. And this dude has like 10 million followers. Like, he's fairly big within that sort of scene. But I really liked the points that he was making. And I had some additional stuff I wanted to add on to it from like a psychological perspective. So I stitched it in as best as I could. And I started speaking everything. It was like a 7.5 minute TikTok video, which is crazy. And it apparently garnered enough attention for him to come into my profile and be like, "You're an incredible speaker," and I like that. And he followed me, so I'm like, I'll take something as small of a win as that.
Nah, congrats, man. It's always nice to be recognized for your work. And like, for me, at this point, I'm still sometimes shocked, if you will, but I've worked with a lot of celebrities. I've met a lot of celebrities. I've interviewed people who are successful. And it's kind of like, for me, it's just one of those things where it wasn't the same effect it was like 7 years ago when I was first starting out. Now it's kind of like, okay, this is what, I'm getting that recognition that, I knew that I was waiting for 7 years ago. So, It's just, it all comes in full circle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, like, it's been almost exactly a full year since you and I last spoke. Probably, actually. I wasn't paying attention to the timeline. It's not super important. Last time I was on your show and we were talking about mostly Marvel-related things because that was really in the zeitgeist at the time because they really came off of like a really big wave of hype and then it kind of just dipped down and died down, unfortunately. But yeah. I guess between then and now, like, what's changed? What's new? What's happening over there?
Yeah, life has been good. Me and my manager and my team and stuff, we've been working hard, booked some cool projects. One, I could probably announce at this point, Google AI commercial. I finally got the footage back. Still trying to figure out the details about Aaron and all that. But that should be up and running sometime this year. A couple other projects in the works. One of the biggest auditions of my life I was able to do this past weekend. So, waiting to see about that. And just making strides in my own career, every day, whether it's the podcast, is acting. I'm always trying to, make sure that I learn and I grow. So when those opportunities do come, I'm not shocked. And I know that when those opportunities come, it's not about me getting opportunity. It's about them getting opportunity to meet the most charismatic man. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to reframe it. You're like, oh wow, it's not, oh wow, I get to meet this person. It's, oh, they get to meet me. They gonna know what's up.
exactly. You know what I'm saying? And just a little spoiler alert, Jason Momoa. He took my role as Lobo, but it's all right because I'm gonna see him one day, and we're gonna have some words. And James Gunn, you too, because you casting it Lobo without me. So but that's for another conversation.
Game recognizes game is all he's saying.
You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. What they doing over there? No, I'm just kidding.
You're like, they got me plastered all over this board, and they couldn't put me on. Are you serious?
It's you know what I'll tell you this, and like for me, one of the things I've learned, especially over the pandemic, meeting a lot of people in the entertainment industry, I stopped talking about auditions, right? And I used to do it all the time. I wouldn't talk about necessarily the projects I was auditioning for, but I'll tell you this, man. Since the last time we spoke, I've been able to audition for some amazing projects in Marvel. So, I'm just waiting for I'm just waiting for James Gunn to call me because I'm a DC guy. So, when he comes calling, I'm going to take the role. So, it's just stop playing James Gunn. I'm not asking for too much. All right, I'm not asking for too much.
Just one phone call, one text. Just like a 3 a.m. like WYA type.
Don't leave me hanging, man. Come on, I got the baby oil in the back. I'm just kidding.
Oh man. I'm glad you mentioned Marvel because I threw this question in kind of midway through it, mostly in light of the conversation that we'd had previously. Because originally all these questions were supposed to be about like your experiences as being an actor and an entertainer and a podcast host and everything. And then the Marvel conversation came up, and I was like, well, now I have to see, because I feel like, I don't know, this was a question I threw again halfway in the middle. It's not even at the top, but I was like, I feel like Marvel hasn't really been doing a whole lot since the last time we spoke, but I'm just curious, like, of your general opinions on what's been happening in those few things that have come up since then.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I finally got the chance to watch Kraven the Hunter last night. That was, amazing set pieces, a lot of amazing, for me, when I watch movies, it's different because I look at it from not only as a fan, but a technical standpoint. The choreography, amazing. Aaron Taylor Johnson, let me say his name right, amazing actor. That movie, it was serviceable. I think Madam Web, obviously, we don't need to go into that one. I'm really looking forward to Captain America: Brave New World because I finally think they finally captured the bottle again, the lightning in the bottle. I think oftentimes, and we talked about this before, oftentimes when a big franchise makes so much money and they grow so profitable, sometimes you lose the end goal. It's like the actor who finally get entertainer who get the taste of the night, the high life, right? You sometimes forget, it took me so much to get to this point. How do I stay at that point, right? And so I think Marvel, they're finally starting to realize, hey, we have to take a break. And I know Bob Iger has mentioned that before, where it's like, look, we got to pump the brakes. We're pumping out too much content, but obviously some of these shows and movies aren't hitting the way they should be. And I think that's ultimately to Marvel's downside, because they have gotten so accustomed to making billions of dollars off a movie that when it doesn't make that threshold, everything is seen as a failure, which I don't agree with. But again, it's the industry standard now. They set that standard. So I think Captain America: Brave New World might be the catalyst. And I think if they can get that movie running and it does super well, I think it'll pick back up that interest that Marvel had, during the Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth era, where it was banger after banger after banger. So I'm looking forward to seeing that movie and seeing if they can capture that attention span that they did in the 2010 era.
Yeah. No, I like your seeing your perspective. I like seeing professionals' perspectives, or like I guess semi-professionals, whatever the word is that they want to that you want to call yourself. I like seeing people who are more attuned to the scene than others, getting to consume content from that scene, and being able to look at it from a perspective of both a consumer and as a person who is like, I've had to in some capacity play part in things like what I'm seeing here. It's like
Yeah.
it's like there's like albums and music that I would listen to when I was really young because I just enjoyed it and it was like a thing that was brought to me when I was younger, and then I faded out of it a little bit, and then suddenly I get like an earworm for it and I come back to it, and being a producer I'm like, oh, now I can appreciate this almost as a whole different medium now.
Yeah. And for me, like, and I'm glad you mentioned semi-professional, professional, because especially in this industry, everybody like to say they're professional, but that doesn't always make you a professional. For me, I'm a professional because I've been doing this for 14 years, and I've trained. I'm theater trained, TV and film trained. I have representation. I've been doing this for 14 years. I have a lot of experience. Again, I don't walk around like I'm the biggest hot shot on the block, although I am. But that goes without saying.
Staying
But
humble.
yeah, yeah. But like for me, I look at when I watch movies and stuff. I look at it not only, like I said, as a fan, but I look at it in a way as competition. Like when I'm watching these scenes and I'm watching the acting and all this, I'm looking at it like, okay, how can I learn from this? Or, okay, I like how they made that choice. Maybe I can implement something like that in my game. And so for me, I'm always looking at it from an actor standpoint and a technical standpoint. And I think a lot of times as an actor, I think a lot of the newbies or even professionals, I think sometimes we forget about the technical aspect of things. And that's why I'm a big fan of Marvel and DC, because it's a lot more than just superheroes. It's not just about the Henry Cavills with the tights on and Superman cape. It's a lot of work that goes into it. And funny enough, I can't get too much into detail about the thing I audition for because nothing is set in stone. But I will say somebody who plays Superman will be leading it. But I'll leave it at that. But yeah, yeah,
That could that could be so many different people. You're not even spoiling anybody with that.
I can, yeah. I probably said a little too much, but you know what? The chances, I always look at it as, like I said, it's sometimes, when you're acting. I had this conversation with another actor who, on my podcast, he did a movie with Zendaya last year, and it's kind of like one of those like it's that high, that adrenaline that keeps you going. It's the same reason why people fell in love with Marvel, right? It's that adrenaline that you get, that feeling of excitement and euphoria. So for me, it's kind of like I'm always grateful and humble no matter what. Whether I get the role, I don't get the role, although it sucks. But, I've been doing it long enough that, you know, every time I do something, I look at it as I'm not here just to book the role. I'm here to impress the people who make these decisions. So, that's why, like, for me, I stopped talking about auditions mostly too, just because if I told you the amount of projects I was able to audition for, it's mind blowing to me. Because I remember during the pandemic, I was sitting in my room in LA thinking, how am I going to get involved in these conversations?
Yeah.
And now, I was talking to one of my longtime acting friends about this the other day. I'm like, man, it's cool sometimes you kind of forget. But I remember when I was just dreaming of this opportunities, and now they're coming, faster than I thought. And so it's really cool, man. And like I said, I don't look at myself any better than anybody else. I'm just another guy with another perspective, just amazing charisma and even better hair too. So yeah.
Yeah, no, amen to that. Yeah. Honestly, that is actually a great way to kind of to describe yourself, because a lot of what I like to do when I talk with people like you is I like to go, okay, here's this person in an established industry, and evidently they have done something to catch my attention to the point where I want to know more about them, and I want to know how they think that they fit in within the industry. And usually the way that I do that is by figuring out, like, okay, there's hundreds of thousands of people trying to do acting and auditioning for things. So clearly there has to be something about you that gives you, I wouldn't even say gives you an edge in a way, but just gives it kind of like a lateral perspective shift so that people have a reason to want to pick you over others. So I'm curious about what you think some of those qualities are for yourself that help make you stand out from other people auditioning for the same sort of roles.
Well, this is an easy question, and once before, it was an easy question, but I found my niche, and this is something that I've had my manager, my agents, prospective agents, in the past. First of all, look at the hair, right? It's a talking point. Some people say,
Yeah,
"Oh, cut it off. I don't like it." Other people like, "Man, that's a fashion statement. That's beautiful. I love it. Keep rocking it." And for me,
everyone's talking about it.
it keeps people talking. And like I look at it, when I was, living in LA, when I was going to a lot of these auditions, there were, not hundreds, but there was tens of actors in the audition room, right? And so for me, talent does play a huge part in it. But for me, I always looked at it in the standpoint of how do you stand apart from everybody else? And sometimes you got to take risks. This business is all about risks, right? And so people look at Dwayne Rock Johnson, right, and says, "Oh, he's not a good actor. He's trash. He plays the same guy he was in WWE." But he set himself up different. He's not trying to be a Denzel and win Academy Awards and Oscars, right? He has a brand, he has an identity, and he uses it and he markets it. And so, acting before the pandemic, I wouldn't have went this route. I probably would have went the traditional, keep the hair short, try to look as corporate as I can. But we're in a different time now, different era. And so for me, I'm in a good spot. I'm young. I have a lot of youth. I have a lot of ways to, play around with my hair and my character. So, if you look at my headshots and stuff, I have one where I look like I could play a thug in Law and Order. I have one where I could play, a tech employee, which I did before in the Google commercial that should be coming out soon this year.
Woohoo.
And then I could also play the lover boy next door, or I can play the superhero or whatever. So for me, I know what my lane is, and my lane is I'm not an emotional guy. I'm not going to be going out crying on cue and doing that. Now, maybe further down the line, that would be something I would probably do. But right now, comedy and stuff that's lighthearted. That's my thing. I come in to steal a show, and I always felt like those type of roles that I've done and I go out for, I usually have a better success rate with. So right now, um, what sets me apart is my charisma, my comedy, and just my overall personality too. Because everybody's different, every actor is different. Even if we're both black going for the same role, we both have different qualities. So for me, I don't go in trying to act like the role that they envision. I go in to bring something, a piece of me to that role to make it at least stand out. And that's why I said for me at this point, I don't go into the audition just trying to book the role. I go in there to make myself memorable. Because what happens is, a lot of these productions, I won't go on too much, but when you're auditioning for, when you see these TV shows and these movies on the big screen, there's a lot that goes into casting. And so for me, okay, let's say I go on for a role, I stand out, they like everything, but they say, "Oh, you know what, the hair's throwing me off for this character. We don't want you for this one," right? But they say, "Hey, I remember this guy. He is a great actor. Let's bring him in for this role." Or, you know what, maybe not right for this role in this project, but you know what, we have another role in this project we think you'll be good for. And so, that's this is a business. And I think oftentimes we forget that. And I'm just a guy who kind of figured out, like I said, I don't know everything, but I figured out I don't have to just be one way. I can do different things and make myself stand out in the audition room and play the game. So okay, I may not get the role, but you know what? At least they'll remember me. They'll keep calling me back, and maybe there'll be a project of mine. If I don't get the role, another project that comes along, and I get that role. So it's there's many ways you could play it, but for me, I choose to go the route of not playing with odds. I'm stacking the odds in my favor. So that's how I do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you show up with a role in mind that you want to do, and you're like, I have the technical skills required to be able to make a character like this work. But then you also have a bunch of other little things that will kind of subconsciously make people remember that you're there. And then you sort of planted a seed within them to be like, all right, now we have this guy that we can use for something in the future. And so whether or not you secure that role, it's like you may have incidentally secured yourself another role way down the line. So it's like you're like future proofing yourself in a way.
Yeah, you gotta, Jared Padalecki, one of my favorite actors. He did a podcast, Inside of You, with Michael Rosenbaum, and he talked about that, especially early on in his career, where it's like you don't know when you'll be right for the role. Like, don't get me wrong, my agents and my manager especially, they send me out for amazing opportunities, but they're not going to be the ones that cast these projects and stuff, right? So what do you do? And my acting teacher, Dr. Simone, huge shout out to him from St. Bonaventure University. One of the things he always taught me was you have to go in knowing that you may not always be right for the role, but as long as you go in there and you prepared and you come in correct, that even if you don't get the role, you impress them. And that's what the key is. A lot of our favorite actors or whatever the case may be is a lot of times they don't get the roles that, especially when they started out or even at that level that they are now, they may not get that role that they're going for. So what do? Okay, let me make them remember me. And I mean, when you're famous, it's a whole different story. But even if you're not famous, when you go into the audition room, go in there not just to book the job, but go in there to make them remember you. So if you're not right for the role, the executives of the TV show or the movie say, hey, we like you, but we like this other actor for the role more. Well, we like your talent. We like what you do. We like your package. So we'll keep you in mind for anything else that comes up. Bam. I had one actor friend that I know. He went into an audition, major audition, and he heard back, oh, we don't want you for this role. Sorry, we cast somebody else. We went in a different direction. A couple days later, they call him back like, hey, we're casting another thing. Can you come in for this? He booked it 2 days later. So, you never really know in this industry. And that's the key part. It's so unpredictable. You don't know where they're going, how they're going to choose. But what you can control is your performance and how you make yourself stick out. So, you don't have to make a fashion statement like me. You could just go in, make certain character choices that may go against the script, or the writer might have the character, let's say he's a nerd, a nerd type. I might go in and play him as a cool nerd, or I might play him as an edgy nerd. So you have to make choices and stuff that make you stand out, or you can go my route and make yourself presentable and unique, if you will. So it's like Triple H once said, you got to play the game.
Yeah. No, literally the phrase "we like you" is good enough in some situations. It seems is what I'm kind of getting from that.
Yeah, it's. I tell you, man, I've been fortunate that, again, I'm not the most successful actor, podcaster in the world, although I'm the most charismatic. But I usually, it's always nice when I get the same casting director or the same producer and stuff like, hey, we have another project in mind. We like, they'll tell my manager, hey, we like your client Percy. Can you send him in for an audition for this project? Or we he's not right for this role. They went a different way, but what about playing this role in this production, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. We as actors, we don't control the casting process. We're just the people who come in, try to do the job, and whether we get it or not, you create more opportunities for yourself. You got to network, you got to stand out, and that's why for me, I started the podcast because I knew that, as much as I love acting, I know it takes a while to kind of build that repertoire with casting directors, especially directors. It usually takes a long time to get into with those type of, the Martin Scorsese's, the Quentin Tarantino's. It takes years to build those type of rapports. So what I do is I find other ways to kind of get around that. So, it's everybody's different. Some people not going to do that, but social media is the biggest tool right now. And so I leverage it in my favor. I don't want to be 45 still waiting for my big opportunity. I'm trying to get in now so I can enjoy the fruits of my labor.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm glad you actually started lightly bringing up the whole reason why you started your own show in the first place, because that was actually going to be my next question, which is like, how did you get into, because I don't think we actually spoke about this the first time, because obviously we were talking about Marvel and stuff. It's like, how did you get
Yeah.
into being an actor, entertainer, deciding to become a podcast host? And then, like, I guess probably will be a separate story, is like, how did you end up being a guest on a handful of Jubilee episodes?
Yeah, so just briefly, I'm not gonna get into the whole history of how I got into acting. Not that
So it
it's
started when I
super
was
long.
born.
Yeah. A long time ago in the stars in the galaxy. No, uh, no. Essentially, for me, when I was 14, it started when I was 12. When I was 12, I grew up on Disney Channel. I'm sure you have too. The Hannah Montanas, the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody's, the Corey in the Houses, and so like when I was 12, I started watching these shows and I got in tune with it. And I remember, in middle school, seventh, eighth grade, you got to start looking in New York City, you have to start looking at high schools. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I started getting in tune with it. I didn't know what acting was. I just loved those shows. And I said, I want to be a part of those. So, I had a teacher at the time in middle school that was like, hey, why don't you try, doing some plays that we're putting up? So I started doing that. And I got a lot of feedback. And people, hey, work on this, but we think you have potential. And so my middle school social studies teacher sat me down and said, "Hey, a lot of people said you're good at acting. Why don't you go to acting school or performing arts school?" So I ended up going to performing arts high school. I studied theater in college, and I worked with a professional theater company while I was in high school. I worked. I did classes at New York Film Academy, Columbia University while I was in high school for acting, and yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a lot of training, learning techniques because theater and TV are way different. So I've been majorly trained in theater, but I made that switch over to TV and film. I would say 2018, right after college, and so this has been something I've been doing for 14 years now, and the podcast, what got me started with that was I moved to LA in 2019, not too long after I graduated. I was on my own, I had some roommates, and I knew I wanted to go there for acting. I didn't go there to party and live the nightlife. I wanted to act. And so during the pandemic, well, right before the pandemic, like 2, 3 months after I moved there, I got my first agent. And so, he was sending me out for work. I'm auditioning for, these big time commercials. I wasn't in TV and film yet, but I was making my way there. The pandemic happened. Everything shut down. And so I'm not one of these actors getting called for the limited amount of TV shows and movies being filmed here. So I'm sitting in my room, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Auditions dried up. I have nothing but free time. I can't just be playing video games all day. What can I do? And one of the things I always remembered, and it ties it to Jubilee a bit. But one of the first episodes I did with Jubilee, I saw the comments and I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, Percy's a great speaker. He has a great personality. He has a unique appearance about him." And so, I always heard that from people. People say, "Oh, you have a nice, uh, you have a nice voice. You know how to speak well." So one Saturday, I'm not even joking. One Saturday, calling my buddy back in New York, and I was like, "Hey, yo, you want to record a podcast?" I literally just sat in my room on my phone and we recorded an episode, and bam, it started from there. And I had no direction. I had no vision. It first started off as controversial topics because at that time a lot of stuff was going on. George Floyd, the pandemic. I had a lot of content to talk about.
Yeah.
So, I was talking about a lot of controversial stuff. And as we started phasing out of the pandemic, I started getting, guests of certain caliber, and stuff like that. And I said, I have to make a change because in this industry, unfortunately, you have to be careful what you say. And as my podcast started growing, people are able to search it up and find it. I said, okay, I need to find what my vision is. What is this podcast? And so I didn't want to, as much as I love controversial topics and stuff. Trust me, I've had people like, yo, I'm gonna email your agent and tell him you homophobic or whatever, even though I'm not, but people. So
Yeah.
I was like, let me steer clear away from that, or at least change the direction. So about 2021, around like the October, November time, I sat down and I'm going through, finding a podcast name. I ended up on the Prince of Fresh Air. And so I did a rebrand. I stopped talking too much about the real deep controversial stuff. And I started going for the interview style, interviewing people of all calibers. And so it became something that I thought was just going to be for fun. And then it turned into something that, oh, I can actually get people on and do something with this. And, 4 years later, this is a podcast that I just started off sitting in my room on the phone. Now I got guests who's been in major motion pictures. You search their name up, you can see their credentials, celebrities. And, for me, it is definitely something I take great pride in because this is something of my own. My manager didn't help me with this. My agent didn't help me with this. This is something I created on my own. And so, for me, I just wanted something I can do that's creative that also helps me. So for the podcast, yeah, it's just talking for some people. But for me, I'm building a connection. I'm staying in front of the camera. I'm working on certain technical skills. I'm learning how to memorize key details. And it helps with my acting because, a lot of times, a lot of things are self tapes now. So there's a lot of technical stuff, editing I have to learn. I got to learn how to do certain things, play with the lighting, play with the sound. So, it's definitely a process to it, but I'm glad I stuck with it. And, I'm glad I have something to take along with me. So as my star gets brighter, this podcast just becomes even more bigger than it is now. So that's why I started it, just for something for me that allowed me to use my voice on my own platform without waiting for someone to call me to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's I I don't know if this is how you feel about this, but I feel like another benefit that you get from running a show in the way that you do is that it does that thing that you were talking about earlier about making sure you don't forget where you came from in a way where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm up here and Jason Momoa stole my role, but to get over that, let me come back down a little bit and kind of be a little bit closer to the ground, as some people would say, and just being like, yeah, I just get to hang out here for a couple of hours and talk with some great people about some very interesting things.
Exactly. It's mutually beneficial. And like for me, like I always, for the longest time, even to this day, there's certain people who look at me and think I'm pretentious, I'm overconfident. I think I'm better than everybody else. And I actually I don't think I'm that way. I think it's just a perceived notion that maybe the way I look to certain people, I come off that way. But I'm a humble guy. Like I know I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm still working. I'm still another actor. Making his way in the industry. I'm not Denzel Washington living in a mansion. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I look at it as I've put in a lot of work over the years, and so I'm where I want to be, and I'm getting to where I should be. And so like I don't that's why for me, I don't mind taking a step back and and doing certain things because I've had plenty of times where people like, yo man, I'm surprised you come on my platform. Why you come on my podcast? You some big time. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just another guy. I don't see myself any better than you. I don't see myself better than anybody else walking down the street. I'm just another guy who enjoys what he does and just want to see the fruits of the labor paying off. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. That's honestly that idea of like, why are you showing up here when you're such a big shot is actually because that's a thing that I did with a couple of people because I think I perceive people's like where they're at in life in the industries that they're in. Sometimes I perceive it as being like it seems a little odd for you to kind of come down to my level in a way and do these sorts of things. And then I forget that like it's not really necessarily that. It's that evidently I was able to bring something to the table that they were actually interested in talking about. So it's less they came down to my level and more the way that I spoke and the way I introduced myself, I got up to their level to be able to have like a fairly even discussion with them.
Yeah. And 100%. That's how you look at it. And like I'll tell you this, for me, the turning point for my podcast really, and it happened before he came on. But I remember I had Dennis McDonald. For people who don't know, he plays Reggie in Bad Boys. Everybody knows the kind of Bad Boy scene with him at the door with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, and they grilling him about dating Martin Lawrence's character's daughter. And when I had him on, I had so many people hit me up like, yo, you got him on. Yo, ask him this, ask him this. And I knew at that time, I said, okay, I finally got to where I want to be. But even during the interview, even after, I still keep in contact with him. I mean, we don't call on the phone every day, but I I've realized though, when he came on my platform, he was doing me a favor. I wasn't doing him a favor. Although it was beneficial for him to come on because he could promote the new film. Not that he needs to, but when he came on, it made me realize nobody's too great to do anything. Now, I mean, is Denzel going to do the average podcast? No, but at the same time, if someone of Dennis's caliber could come on mine, why can't I do that for somebody else? And I remember when I was slaving to get regular guests on. Even someone like you, I remember times where it took me a while to get someone like you on. And so, like, I never forget where I started and where I am. And so, like, that's why even I do get the Lobo role, Jason Momoa, I'm coming for you. But even when I do get that dream role, I'm still going to do what I'm doing now because I know that all this stuff can be taken away like that. And so I'm humble. I'm grateful for every opportunity that comes my way, that have come my way, and will come my way. And if I can help somebody else grow their podcast and platform, I'm not a hater. And unfortunately, in this industry, when I lived in LA, it was kind of like that. I hated the aspect of I'm better than you. I don't want to talk to you unless you're above me. And so I don't view myself that way. And I will always continue to help other people any way I can because certain people like Dennis and other celebrities that I've met on set and stuff that gave me words of encouragement when I was starting out. I'll never forget those and how much it helped me. So I mean, like I said, I'm still on my rise, but if I can help somebody else grow their platform, or maybe I can share a little word of charisma with them, why not?
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's I don't have nearly as much of the same situation, but I do try and impart that into some people as well. Because like the space that I primarily am going to operate in is like making YouTube videos and making a little bit of a name for myself in a very hyper specific niche, but it is weird that sometimes, like, I am still just a regular person. I still work my regular 9 to 5. I still, do all these regular things that anybody in their early 20s does. But I'll go to like a random YouTube video that I really enjoyed, and I'll comment on it because I like commenting on things as a consumer. And I'll have occasionally I'll have some people who will come in and be like, "Oh, what the hell? I didn't expect to see you here." And I'm like, "Why? I'm just a dude." I forget that people just recognize my name across the space now, and it's very, very strange. But I'm glad that I can at least like bring people's attention to certain things and especially shine light on the work that other people can do that I happen to personally enjoy, or something that I'm like, do I have your graces to use this thing that you made? You will get all the credit in the world for the thing that you provided me, making the production quality of what I'm making better.
Exactly. And like, shout out to you for that, right? Because it's, don't get me wrong, when you first get that feeling of, oh, look who it is. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. Like I remember the first time people saw, oh yeah, I saw you in a Jubilee video. Like it was cool. And like even to this day, sometimes I'll get people like, yo man, I saw you on TikTok, and I'm grateful for it, right? And don't get me wrong, I don't take that for granted. But like for me, I look at it as, like I said, I don't think I'm better than anybody. And so, like I said, people have given me chances to grow myself, right? And I know that there's other people growing their platforms that sometimes need that guest to kind of help them up a little bit. And so that's why I always try to give back. I remember last summer I did the show. Some guy hit me up, was like, hey man, I'm starting out this podcast. I know you probably don't want to do it, but would you mind being a guest? I said, sure, why not? And I remember he was telling me after, he said, hey man, I can't believe you came on. Like, I appreciate that. Like someone like you, I could search your name up and stuff. Like you didn't have to do this. I said, I remember I was just like you not too long ago. I'm not, and like the crazy part was he was older than me. He was in his 30s. So I was like, I think I just come off older because I look at myself as a professional, and I've been like this since I was like 21. I always come off as a professional. So people think I'm older than I am. But like it's just because I like to carry myself in a certain way. And yeah, I'm still goofy, act like a fool, and I know when I can laugh and joke. But I look at this as a business, but I'm also look at it as a human. And so when I say my podcast, a helping hand is a better hand, it's not just a slogan. It's a way of life for me. And so like that's why for me, I don't mind taking that time out. Someone like, hey, I have a question, or hey, can you come on my podcast? It'd be nice to have someone like you come on. I'm all game for it because at one point I was in that same situation, and it wasn't that long ago I was in that situation either. So, I always stay true to the fact that nobody is better than anybody. Even Denzel, as much as I love him, he's my inspiration. I don't think anybody's better than anybody. But at the same time, I do know people look at people differently. So, I'm just doing my part. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I guess one little thing for people who do who do excuse goodness, excuse me. People
The
who
charisma caught
do,
you off guard, didn't it? No.
yeah, a little bit. It was, I could feel it in my throat. I was about to start crying from how beautiful that speech was. No, no. I guess to people who find themselves in a situation similar to that guy who was like, I don't know if you want to come on this podcast because you're fairly large, like, in the most respectful way possible. To people who are like that, don't do that. And the reason I say that is like, if if you have a reason to, if you have a good reason why you think people want to watch your content, listen to your content, listen to your show or whatever, you want to exude as much of that energy as you can into people that you're asking to bring on if you're a guest related show. I understand that sometimes you don't want to look like you are greater than thou when you send emails or send DMs to people asking to have them come on the show. But having a certain level of confidence over these sorts of things is honestly a thing that will get people to come in. It'll get people to, sometimes it's because people are going to take your confidence as a quote unquote overestimation of how actually good your show is. Like they're going to think, oh, this person came with so much energy and so much confidence that like clearly they run an incredible show. And you probably do, even if the numbers don't reflect it. So I just
Yeah.
want to, when you reach out to people for these sorts of things, like no holds barred, just be like, hey, this is the show that I do. This is the purpose of it. This is where I think you'd be incredible at coming in. I'd really appreciate it if you wanted to come on. And because that's basically exactly what I do with the people that I ask. And really the only thing that I do at the end of it is I go, if you're not interested, I totally understand it, because I understand that podcasts aren't the best, aren't the thing that everybody's into. Because that's ironically usually been the reason why people have been like, hey, I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to have to pass on it. So yeah, really just like come in with your full chest, with all of your energy, and you'd be surprised how many great things they can do for you.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's confidence, and I learned that doing the Jubilee stuff because those were the first. Like, I had a career before that, but those were like the real like spotlight type of days where people can see it online and see me. And working with Jubilee for the 5-6 episodes I've done helped me because it gave me a confidence that okay, I'm getting to where I need to be, and I just need to just believe in myself, take a risk on myself. And so like my approach, and I still, even to this day, I still reach out to certain people because I know they're not going to just come knocking on my door. But I remember when I hit up this is a couple different people, but like Kevin Iole, for instance, he's someone who's one of the most well-respected journalists in the combat sports community, MMA, boxing. And to have someone like him on who's connected with some of the biggest names in MMA history, he's friends with the UFC president Dana White. To have someone like him come on my platform, who I'm not an MMA podcast, for him to come on and give me a shot, it's beautiful. But the way how you do it, like you said, you got to go into it pitching yourself in the most positive light. Would you want to do business with a guy like, hey, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but if you want, would you want to come and help me? Most people probably gonna say no, especially when they have a platform. They can be like, hell no, I'm not doing that. But if you come like, hey, I'm Percy, I'm the host of the Prince of Fresh Air podcast. I'm the most charismatic man. It'd be a great opportunity to have you on. Would you be interested? That's how you hit them. It's a sales pitch. And I've learned that in acting because acting every day for me is a sales pitch. Whether, it's getting an audition, doing an audition, the callbacks, everything is a pitch of myself to somebody. So it, it it's definitely something that takes some practice to.
Oh, there we go. Hold on. The internet cut out.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like, God
All
damn
right.
it, TMZ.
There we go.
Uh, yeah, we're back. TMZ, Harvey Levin, nice try. You can't stop this. But I'm confident in myself. And don't get me wrong, when you build a platform and people are able to search it, it does make it easier. Because I know if I reached out to certain people a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have gotten them on. But now, if I say, "Hey, I'm the host of Prince of Fresh Air," they check out my page on IMDb, they search it up on Google, bam, you see photos and stuff of it. It makes it legit, and it seems legit, and it comes off like something that I can get behind this. And let me just clarify something real quick, DJ Cereal Sauce. Podcast is the new thing now. And let me tell you that, like, I had a publicist on, and we have a good working relationship now. But this guy, he's been working with celebrities for 30 plus years, right? And one of the things we was talking about off camera was, hey, a lot of people are doing podcasts now. Why is that? Why are celebrities not doing just the late night talk shows with the Jimmy Fallon's of the world? You're seeing people on podcasts now. Why is that? It's because a lot of people are trying to stay with the times. The being on the late night shows, don't get me wrong, are still the coveted spot. But so is being on some podcasts. Like, some podcasts do more numbers than these late night shows. So for a lot of people, if you have a platform, and especially find your niche, right? Because you don't want to be the guy, one episode you're talking about conspiracy theories, another one you're talking about, how much you hate Republicans or Democrats, and another one you're talking about, vaping in the bathroom with your boys. Like, if you find your niche and you find your target, then it makes it easier to get people on. And so, like, you can't be, the Prince of Fresh Air or DJ Cereal Sauce talking about a bunch of nonsense and expect someone who's highly successful in their career to come on, because they want to make sure when they come on, they're not being gotcha. It's a gotcha moment. I'm just looking for someone to, get a viral clip from. They want to make sure it's beneficial to them, but also beneficial to you. So that's why, for me, even though it took me a while to get to this point, I make sure that when I reach out to certain people, that I know that it'll be beneficial not only for me but for them. And so, I may not be able to shoot at the stars right now and get Will Smith on, although maybe next year I could.
Yeah.
But I know that if I reach out to certain people, you have to plant the seeds. Sometimes you got to start off with the small time influencer on Instagram who has 20,000 followers, who does amazing numbers. But then eventually you build that rapport. People start seeing, oh, you had this guy on. Okay, let me check him out. Let me see what he's about. And then next thing you know, you get a guy with 75,000 followers, big platform. He's working with Mr. Beast and stuff. Okay, people look at that and like, oh, okay, he's working. Like, I could come on his podcast, and then it just happens naturally. So trust yourself, be confident, and don't be afraid to sell yourself. Because at the end of the day, everything's a sales pitch, especially when it comes to entertainment. People want to know that when they're working with you, it's going to be quality magic. And that's why, for me, I always promise entertainment, because when I'm on, there's nothing but entertainment. So
yeah, exactly. No, I think classifying these sorts of things as a sales pitch is the perfect example. I think you have a little bit of an edge to you, because if somebody saw The Prince of Fresh Air as the podcast name, I think that immediately piques their interest by like an additional 20%. So you've got that going for you.
Yeah, I'm the cheat code.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I had thought of that sooner. Damn it. No, but I also the point that you made about like somebody who comes at you with an opportunity and they're a little bit shy and timid about it. I think in the most respectful way possible, a lot of people are going to deny that, because they're going to look at it as just a person who is a fanboy of whatever you do, who is just sort of, who I guess has enough of the balls to directly reach out to you to try and have a bit more of an interesting conversation than something they might have with their general audience. And so, like, a lot of the people that I've reached out to, I am incredibly big fans of what they do. I'm a big fan of how they conduct business and the types of content they make and whatnot. But I forget that, like, I'm also, don't forget, I'm also a professional myself in some capacity. So I try and exude that energy when I go to them. That way they're like, I appreciate that the way that you reached out to me was very human like. You know, you're very much a person, you have your own personality, and I can see you have an end goal with this that isn't just talk to a person who you happen to really enjoy their content, you know?
Exactly. You got to look at it as, acting has made me grow so much my mindset because I look at everything differently than the average person. Now, not every actor is going to feel that way, but for me, I look at everything in acting terms. Like, and so for me, I look at it as if you want something, you have to go get it. And in order to get some things, sometimes you gotta take risks. You gotta bet on yourself. And don't get me wrong, this DMs that haven't been opened since I've reached out to certain people and they haven't read it yet. And that's cool, or they might have read it. I'm not sure yet, I haven't checked, but some people have read it and said, I'll get back to you, and never did. And you know what? That's part for the course. That comes with the territory. But what happens is, and it's like acting, you're gonna get no's for every 95 auditions before you get that one yes. So for me, it's all about just building that repetition and getting that reputation intact. And sometimes it's going to take a while. Sometimes you might get lucky, strike gold, get the first person you DM. Sometimes you do get lucky. I think Dennis was probably one of the first like 10 I DM'd, and I got that. So it's one of those things. Like for me, I'll be real because I have to be real at some point. This is not a fairy tale, but I do think when you get to a certain point in your career in the podcast or whatever you're doing, you have to start thinking in terms of leveling up. And I hate to say that and I'm not saying it in a way where you have to feel like you're better than people, but at the same time, do you want to keep interviewing the same kind of guests over and over? So if you look at my podcast a year and a half ago, I had great conversations with people, and I will still reach out to certain. I'll still have anybody who's willing to share their voice come on. But at the same time, I don't want to be stagnant in that level, and I can't go from eating, steak and lobster to a double cheeseburger from McDonald's. Not that I'm not, but I will. But like for me, you have to keep leveling up. And how do you level up? You got to get certain guests on. And for me, I look at it as the more high profile or highly recognizable the guest is, and makes your game step up more, right? Because it's not just shooting a breeze with someone on your level. Now you're dealing with a higher caliber. So for me, I remember when I was doing this commercial, I remember we had this one celebrity on set. Now you got to step your game up. You're not going to just be showing up, just having a party. You're going to have to be professional and show up and step your game up and show them you can hang with the big boys. So for me, when I started getting these type of guests on, it made me approach podcasts differently. Yeah, I still have fun. We crack jokes, we laugh, and we entertain. But this is not just an average episode anymore. Now we're going to have to, do things, make sure we actually getting stuff done. And so it makes it easier and it's cool when people say, hey man, I saw your podcast. So, I Googled it and I searched it, I watched it. You had this guest on, that's cool. I'll take the opportunity, I'll come on. And the reason why that happens is because people take the time just to check you out. And if you come correct and you look like someone they can see themselves having fun with and working with, they'll take that chance. So, try to come. Everybody's podcast is different. DJ Serious Sauce is going to do things a little different than me. And that's cool. That's what it's all about. Nobody wants the same type of podcast when they search them. So, just make sure you stand out in any way you want. It could be your background. It could be how you sound. It could be your personality, your looks, whatever. But find something that makes you stand out, make you unique, make your podcast or your platform unique. And then you start building that, and eventually people are going to come to you. It's just natural selection at its core.
Yeah. And I don't know, I guess this is one small offshoot of that before I move into the thing that I was originally going to ask before we went on a tangent of a tangent. But I'm curious what you think about bless you. I'm curious what you think about, because one thing I think about is like a lot of the podcasts that I really enjoy and that I put a lot of my own hours into are ones that are easily repeatable in a sense where even after I've finished everything, I know that I can still go back and watch the same things again if I like, because I find them entertaining and they're mostly evergreen in a sense. Like how do you feel about that sort of thought process? Bless you.
Oh God! Jason Momoa, I smell you coming a mile away. And anyway, back to
He's at the bottom of
schedule
the
program.
loft.
Yeah, he's playing games with me. Yeah. So for me, I look at podcasts. Like I said, everybody's thing is different, but I look at it as when I watch this or I'm listening to it, can I put my phone down without watching it and doing my thing and enjoy it? So for me, I look at it, okay, I don't want to keep hearing the same pop top jokes that you said last episode. I don't want to just hear a lot of lollygagging. And I want something that's going to keep my interest. And I don't have to keep my interest the whole 50 minutes, 2 hours, right? But it has to be engaging at some point for me to stay on. And so one of the biggest things they always say is, especially in this society, our generation, you got to capture people's attention span very quickly. And it's a downside, but it's also a blessing too, because it forces you to, really start hitting the hay quickly. So my favorite type of podcasts are ones that get straight to the point. We're not just taking 10 minutes to talk about, our son jumped off the crib and I was changing diapers and I went to, tailgate my buddies to Islanders game. No, we're having fun, we're cracking jokes, and we get straight to the point. And that's kind of how I look at it too. Because you got to look at it as people's time is limited. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's going to be unemployed, sitting at home, doing nothing. So if you're in the car driving from work to your home, or maybe you're, in the middle of a flight, you're going somewhere for vacation, your time is limited. So you make the best that you can and you make sure you keep people engaged and then, it's entertaining. So you got to make sure you throw those jokes in there. You keep me interested. You talk about interesting topics. Or even if you don't do all of that, at least make it funny. So like that's how I look at it. And I also look at it in the sense that too, people's time is limited. So when I have a certain guest on, right, I might have a guest on who may not have a big platform, right? I can, shoot the breeze for an hour and a half and it's fine. But if I have someone like a Kevin Ioli, a Dennis McDonald, a James Lynch, who are very professional, they're very successful in their careers, they don't have an hour to just be sitting there wasting time. They want to get the bang for their buck. So that's kind of how I love my podcast stuff is, sometimes you're going to go on a tangent and have some fun. But there's a purpose to the episode. It's not just you sitting there talking about the latest stupid stuff that's going on in life. So, again, everybody's thing is different. I'm not here to judge. But for me, especially being entertainment, we're so ingrained in, we have fun, but we get the job done. That's how I look at it. So I'm all about entertainment because even if sometimes you might talk about something that people don't care about, let's say me and you talking about Marvel, some people might say, oh, I'll give a crap about Marvel, but we make it interesting for them to, oh, okay, let me hear what his opinion is. It keeps them interested, keeps them coming back for more. And that's what you want. So, everybody's style is going to be different. Everybody's going to captivate audiences different. But for me, I look at it as, once you have a brand and you have an identity, it makes it easier to kind of keep keep it interesting and keep it entertaining. And that's how I look at it. So most of my episodes are not super long. We're not talking 2 hours because nobody really wants to record for 2 hours. But even then too, do you think you're going to keep somebody's engagement for 2 hours? No, because most people ain't going to be sitting down listening to podcasts for 2 hours straight. So how do you do it? You keep them short, you keep them sweet, you have fun, but you hit them hard in that, that hour that you got or 30 minutes. So, you got to be able to balance the important conversations with the entertainment, with the comedy. So, and, I think I do that pretty well. And I love podcasts that do that well, where, they have different layers to them as well.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I'm definitely curious to see how, just in general, how shows are going to be or how podcasts are going to be changing as the landscape changes. Because I at least think about the way that I'm handling my show right now, and it's generally it's people who happen to know who that person is, or people who happen to know who I am and don't really give a hell of who I'm talking to. Right? I can just make them as long as the person will allow me to. But eventually, it might hit a point where I end up punching above my weight class more than I expect to. And that's when I'm going to have to understand how to properly, at least not really change the format or fix the format, but like figure out how to make the timing more convenient for all parties involved and make it like you said, like leveling up the show in a way as I punch above my weight class.
Yeah. Now, well, I'll tell you, you're punching above your weight class right now. We're approaching an hour. No, I'm kidding.
The
No.
longest show I've ever ran is like 3 hours. I don't know how it happened. It just sort of did. It's like I turned on the recording, I did my intro, and then 3 hours passed and it was nighttime. Like I don't.
Yeah. I don't know. I had that happen before, and trust me, I did not want it because I was just honestly, I was dead at that point. This was like 3 years ago. I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. It was the most boring conversation I ever had. And I will never disrespect any guest, anybody who comes on. But I was just like, holy crap, don't ramble for 5 minutes without saying nothing, and people do that. So, but yeah, to your point, I think podcast is changing, right? And we're seeing some podcasts, and I wouldn't even say some, a lot of podcasts are starting to grow to the point where they're getting Drake's on, they're getting Denzel's on. And so I think podcast is changing the way how people consume information because most people don't have cable TV. They use YouTube. They have a Spotify. They have Apple Podcasts. They have an Amazon account. They have Audible. So people are consuming content in many different ways. And podcasts to me, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but there's some podcasts that are my go-tos. And it's because it's something to help me. Like if I'm cleaning, I'm editing something, or I'm on a flight, I have something that keeps me engaged. And I think podcast is changing the game because it's reaching new audiences. Don't get me wrong, being on a Jimmy Fallon, a Jimmy Kimmel late night show, those are coveted spots. But at the same time, how many people are watching those like they used to? Not as many. And I mean, they still get views. They're still big. But there's certain podcasts, like I said, you go on YouTube, they're hitting numbers bigger than Jimmy Fallon have ever had. So I think that the name is the game. You got to stick with the times. And with the beauty of podcasts, and this is something I started doing, is that you can make short clips. You could promote it different ways. So like for me, when I have certain guests on, I can always go in, take out certain bits and pieces, put them together in the reel on Instagram and promote the episode. And now not only I have content, but the guests have it too. So they can always promote the conversation we're having. So if they come on my podcast and promote a new movie they got coming out, I can splice it up for them, or they could just take the episode, cut it, or have their team do it, and they have something to promote. So I think podcasts, I say in the next 5 years, I think it's going to be even bigger. And I think it's big now. And this is one of the reasons why I went away from just audio only, was because I knew that at some point when the pandemic happened, I was only audio only, or I would do like videos, but it was still audio only. And they were getting great numbers, amazing numbers. But then when we started leaving the pandemic, those numbers started dwindling a little bit. I ain't gonna lie, I was kind of like, what's going on here? And it was because people wanted to see the video stuff. And so how do you make the best part, or how do you make yourself, continue to grow and adapt? I started turning on the camera. Now, if you look at some of my early episodes with the video, it wasn't the greatest quality, but at least people could watch it. And so I started, it made me constantly change. Okay, I want to grow the podcast and get more people. How do I do that? Okay, let me experiment with trying this. Okay, let me upgrade my microphone. Let me upgrade my background. Let me upgrade my camera. And so you start doing that. You start playing around with it, and eventually you find something. I mean, you're always going to improve. And I think the days of, oh, I need to be, the whole in-person studios, those podcast stuff work tremendously. But one of the benefits of a video conference is you could get anybody anywhere, anytime. So if I wanted, a Denzel on, I don't have to worry about him flying to New York or LA to come do the podcast. He got a microphone. He has a team. He has everything that he needs at home. We can have a great conversation this way. So I think eventually, I think podcast is already blown up, and I think it's just going to get even bigger and better as more platforms embrace them and make them especially financially worth it. Because sometimes it does take a long time to make any money from it and to make a living off of it, I don't know if we'll ever get to that point in the immediate future. But I would say in like 5 years, you'll see a lot of people being able to make some decent money off a podcast.
Yeah, I especially think with the potential that if your podcast has a lot of traction, you can upload those podcasts to other platforms that also support video, and then you suddenly have like 3 times the amount of streams just coming from different places, with
Yeah,
most of them probably being able to pay better than what Spotify or Apple Podcasts would pay you for the same number of views.
yeah,
So
and like I said, think about the guests you want. If you're into tech or if you're into influencing, if you want someone like a Mr. Beast or a Marcus Brownlee or something, you got to make it worthwhile for them. So yeah, you may not have the big in studio setup, and that's cool. That's fine. Just make the best of what you have. And so, like for me, yeah, did I think I wouldn't have gotten those guests unless I got a studio? Absolutely. But I'm able to get those guests on from the comfort of my own apartment. Why? Because I set up something that's memorable. People come on. It's not just some half-ass thrown together or just some lazy production value. Yeah, I'm putting effort into it and I'm making the most of the video quality and the stuff that I have to my resources. So again, everybody's going to look at it differently, but for me, I look at it as accessibility. It's always easy. Everybody got a camera, everybody got a phone, everybody got a microphone attached somewhere, whether it's their phone, their laptop, or they have a mic like we do. It's easy to always get somebody on virtually. So why not make that the best possible option? And some people would rather do that because they can dress up, they can stay at home, they can set up the lights, the camera, and we have fun. We have great conversation. You can promote what you're doing. I can, do my whole charismatic spiel, and it's a win-win.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let me look at this really quickly. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to what happens on Jubilee, especially because it's weird. It feels like there's like two. I don't know if there's two versions of it or if they just do two separate things. Because the Jubilee that I'm used to, there was a producer that I really like, a YouTube producer who was on a Jubilee show with some people making a song in like an hour or whatever. But then other Jubilee stuff that I see is like, here's these political debates that are happening. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing. But as a result, that means that I don't keep up super frequently with what they're doing. How did you end up on there in the first place?
Yeah, so real quick, so the way how Jubilee works, they've grown since when I first did the first episode. So now it's the same channel. They just have different, different series rather, right?
Okay.
It's like Marvel. They'll have, phase 1, but they'll do Captain America, then they'll do a Spider-Man, then they'll do a TV show, right? So with Jubilee, they'll have middle grounds, then they'll have ranked, then they also have the new thing you're talking about, the political stuff. I think they'll surround it. Shout out to the producer who hit me up about that. But how I got started was, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I think I came across one of the videos right around the pandemic, and I was watching the video. I can't remember what it was, but I saw that they said, "Hey, we're always looking for a new cast. Hit us up if you're interested." So I sent in my form, said I'm an actor, sent them my headshot or whatever. And the first episode I ever did with them was online dating versus traditional dating. This came out, I think, right before the pandemic. So about, I would say, like, yeah, right before the pandemic. And so I did that one. The reception for that one at the time, crazy. I remember getting DMs from people. I was reading the comments, Percy. I was like, okay, this is awesome. And so I could tell you everyone because I remember everyone. So I did that one. I think a month or two later, they hit me up like, hey, I remember you mentioned something about chess, that you're an avid chess player. We have another episode we want to do with this 13-year-old who was like this chess prodigy. Would you be interested in doing like this Zoom, this not in person, but like Zoom call thing, production with us? So sure, why not? Let's do it. So I had my camera on and we did that, and that was cool. It didn't blow up anything, but it was fun to do that. I got to meet a lot of people. And then the next one I did was the pro-vax versus the skeptics, and that one was the one that was I got a lot of favorable reviews, but it was very interesting because at the time COVID, so I had a lot of people DMing me about this, and it was like, "Yo, either they hated the side I was on the skeptic side, so they was like, they either hated that I was on the skeptic side, or they appreciated how neutral I came across." And so again, for me, it was like a lot of people don't like to read the comments. I do, just to see where people engage, just to gauge where people are at. And so I started getting involved. I started loving the attention I was getting. I ain't gonna lie, why lie now?
Pretty
So
reasonable.
and so like I started loving the attention. Like, yo, we love Percy. It was always the hair. People always mention the hair. So I said, okay, let's keep rocking with it. And eventually, yeah, they kept calling me. And the last one I did is the one that a lot of people to this day, the last one I did was 2 years ago. No, it was last summer, 2023. And even to this day, I have people ask me about this. Testosterone, it was ranked to testosterone. And so it was me and six other guys. And one of the guys actually ended up on a hit reality show. We can't talk about that because he's an NDA, but that one blew up. And the one previous to that blew up too, but this one, I'm like, it's 2025 and people still telling me about this. And so yeah, it's been a fun ride. I love working with them. And I always tell people, you don't always see everything. It's like acting, and that's why I don't get upset with them, because oftentimes people might say, "Oh, they cut this out." It's like acting. You might play a role and they'll cut some of your scenes out. It is what it is. I don't control it. But what I do is I'm strategic. I know that they're looking for certain things. That's how you got to approach Jubilee. And some people don't like the direction they've been into. I don't mind. Everybody's going to grow, and they're going to try to capture all the viralness that they can get. So for me, I play the game. When I'm working with Jubilee, I enjoy every time I work with them, but I play the game. I know they're going to cut certain things. They cast me for a specific reason. So I utilize every moment I can to steal the show. So I make sure, even if they cut this or they cut that, at some point I make sure I stood out. So that's you gotta play the game. Acting has taught me that you have to play the game. Make sure you bring something memorable and make people remember you. So Jubilee's brought me a lot of followers on Instagram. It kind of helped me with my YouTube channel a little bit. I just wish I would have capitalized on it a little more when I was doing it. That's all.
Yeah, like early on. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
When I was doing it with them, I was on Instagram and stuff, and I had the podcast, but I didn't really push it, and it was because I didn't have these guests I have on now. But if I would have taken all the fan support and stuff, even if it's negative, I should have utilized it for my podcast, YouTube, because I didn't. That's one of my biggest things. Is I wish I would have started YouTube a little earlier. It's been what, like 7 months to start YouTube officially for the podcast, but I wish I would have just capitalized on all the hype and stuff going around. But you know what? It is what it is, because I know I'm gonna get that role. Like I said, James Gunn, give me a call, and once that happens, game over. Game over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's interesting. I again, it was crazy because I'm like, I don't keep up with what they do, and I didn't realize that you were even working with them or had done stuff with them that early on, because I had only heard about them again maybe 2021, 2022 potentially, and I was like, oh no, he's been here the whole time.
Yeah. A lot of people people are shocked when they see me. Well, some people know because I've promoted on Instagram, but for people who don't know, eventually at some point they watch the episode I did, and they're like, wait, you was in this? I'm like, yeah, I was in a couple. And so like that's why like now, if you go like on Instagram, on my links and stuff, on my website I have it, and then on my link tree and stuff, I just put the videos up there because I know at some point people ask me about it. So I'm gonna tell them, just go watch it and enjoy. Because at some point I'll be on Facebook. Also, I get a Jubilee notification from episode I did 3 years ago. I'm like, it's been 3 years ago, but It's beautiful and I enjoy it because it means it keeps people talking. So I'm fine with a 3-year episode coming back around. And, now we're talking about maybe, I'm not sure yet, but they reached out to have me on for something else. And they've also, we're thinking about maybe doing a reunion for one of the episodes too. But we'll see what happens with that.
All right, so what I'm hearing is we need to pay attention to what Jubilee is doing in the next couple of months because you might see a familiar face on there.
Well, we'll see. Because if I get this role that I just auditioned for, I'm gonna be out for a few months, shooting that. But I'm a humble man. I sign autographs whenever. So if you want one, come get some.
Yeah, keep your eyes peeled in general is essentially is what we're saying right now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, let me see. God, you, much like a lot of the other people that I talk to, they delve into a bunch of different things all at the same time. YouTubing, podcasting, streaming, making newsletters, making Substacks, like all this kind of stuff. How do you personally find the time and what organizational things do you use to actually help keep these things fairly organized so that you're not either fully confused on where to go next or overwhelmed by the amount of options you have?
Well, that's a great question. And I think if I didn't have a manager and agents and stuff, it'd be a lot harder to manage stuff. And even now, to be honest, sometimes it does get a little overwhelming doing everything because I do all of this on my own. Besides acting, everything else is on my own. So for me, sometimes I'll ask for help and stuff, but I usually do all of it by myself. The podcast star, I've been trying to always find ways to grow and get better. And so the way how I kind of go about it is my memory. I've looked at it as training. Again, it's weird. Some my people think it's weird, but I look at everything in the acting mentality. So when I have something lined up, I go based off memory. Now, if it's something really important, I can't miss it, and I know that if I miss it, this is going to be it. And my manager's going to call me and give me a ass whooping. I make sure I write it down in my calendar and stuff. But a lot of times I try to organize everything in my email. So eventually if I'm DMing somebody or opportunity comes and it's not through email, I switch it over there because I know I check my email daily, multiple times a day, especially during the week. So I try to make sure I keep everything organized to the point where my email is the biggest thing I have. And so I don't mind doing things through text and Instagram and stuff, but when it comes to actual business stuff, I always try to get it to emails. And I honestly, I do a good job memorizing most of the stuff I have. So I always remember, okay, Thursday at 3 p.m. I got this, or okay, I have an audition on Wednesday. I'm not gonna wait till Tuesday night to do it. I'm gonna do it, tonight, or I'm gonna do it tomorrow if I can memorize and prepare in time. So I'm really one of those people. If I could get it done quickly and early, I do it. And it's something that goes back to theater. My theater professor once said, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. So for me, if I could get things done early and quick, I'm in a good mood. And everything goes smoothly. So I try to do everything as quickly and efficiently as I can. So I don't wait until last minute and I have all these commitments and stuff I got to do. And don't get me wrong, like it's starting to get overwhelming sometimes because it takes a lot to do, at this point for the podcast. It's not just recording and sending out the clips, the episode anymore. Now it's, I'm dealing with people's publicists, their managers. They want certain things. They want the files, they want the links, they want, art or whatever. So, now it's not just my podcast logo on the episode. Now I'm going in and creating podcast art for the episode, because if I have a guest who's high profile or, very successful, I don't want to make it seem like it's amateur hour, so I got to make sure, the podcast IMDb is always updated. My website for acting is updated. My casting stuff for acting is updated. When it comes to the episodes, if I know it comes out on Tuesday, I got to make sure everything is ready and prepped for that day. I got to make sure all the emails and stuff is sent out to the actor or the guest or their management team or whoever. So, it's still manageable right now. But at some point, I might leverage, maybe getting some help. And I've been trying to avoid having like my manager and stuff involved, but it's starting to get to the point of growth, especially dealing with these type of caliber guests that is becoming a lot of work. So it's a blessing and a curse, and but I will take the blessing over the curse any day. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I respect anybody who is able to do a bunch of different things at once and at least has some systems in place to make sure that they keep them mostly organized. Because unfortunately, while I have a lot of dreams and aspirations for things that I want to do and like to do, I simply don't have the bandwidth to do all of them. So when it gets to a point where I'm super overwhelmed and don't know what I need to be doing, and I feel like there's something I should be doing, but I can't pinpoint what it is, I take the least important things that are the least impactful to me and I just kill them. I just get rid of them until I have the time. So I respect people who don't have to do that and can instead find other ways to help manage the time that they need to take to do those things, or helping with organization or helping with other little things. So it's good to see that you at least have some systems in place that you're potentially looking at implementing when things get pretty difficult. And I also respect the like doing things as quickly and efficiently as possible, because my thought on all of these things is I'm going to do these things first and foremost when they get brought up to me, because if I don't do them right now, I'm going to forget.
Yeah, yeah. It takes a lot of work, and like for me, it's manageable right now because I don't act all the time. I don't act every day. So the podcast is like my real main thing that I focus on. It's not my main focus, but it's something I do, you know,
Very
on
consistently.
a consistent basis. So for me, it could get overwhelming because sometimes, let's say one week is slow. One week I recorded everything, edit everything. I'm chilling, and then another week I finish editing. But bam, my manager sends me an audition. Bam, then my agent sends me one. Bam, then I got a call back, and so it becomes a lot of work. That's why for me, always I found uh, a process for me. So what I do is if I can get multiple recordings in a short amount of time as I can, I milk it. So one week, if I get one, that's cool. Especially if it's someone who's important, that's fine. But then another week, let's say I have two guests who are successful. Uh, let me get them on. I can have enough episodes to last me a month because I don't record every week because I know I can't handle that type of schedule.
Yeah.
So I know every other week is perfect for me, at least right now. Sometimes days I got to stretch that. So I don't hold myself to a specific deadline when it comes to podcasts like I do acting. And like you said, it's about prioritizing. So if I have unless it's like someone super very important who has a major project coming out, sometimes I will, hey, I know I said I'm gonna put on this date, but I'm actually push it back another week or two, right? So I could focus on the things that make more sense. Because don't get it twisted. A lot of people think who just meet me on, know the podcast thing. I'm just a podcaster. No, I love this. Acting is my thing. I will give this up for acting any day of the week. So, and I don't say that lightly. Let me say that first. I don't say that lightly. But if an acting opportunity comes that's life changing for me, I'm 100% going to do that. But it's a balance too because I'm not giving it up either because I know that I can't. Not every actor, or even in today's society, most actors aren't just making money off of acting. You'll see a lot of successful actors, entertainers having podcasts. They'll have some type of, whether they do skits online or YouTube channel. Everybody's always trying to find a new way to make money or get themselves out there. I don't care how famous you are, you always look for the opportunity to get your name out there, reach new people. So, it can get overwhelming sometimes, but this is the life I envision. And I remember like it was yesterday, sitting on the balcony in LA during the pandemic, sitting on the balcony on my laptop, just looking at the sky, thinking, man, when is this going to come? I've been doing this for a while now. When is this finally going to change? And I'm at that point where I'm right there. And so why give up now? this is the time where you really dig deep, put them bootstraps on, and get to work. So, I'd rather be busy than just sitting at home eating Doritos all day.
Yeah.
So, that's how I look at it.
Being a go-getter rather than waiting there for something to come your way, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know myself, especially when it's cold, I will eat cheesecake till I die. So I gotta keep moving. You know what I'm saying? I can't be walking around with the cheesecake belly, when Jason Momoa got the six pack.
Yeah.
That can't happen.
That cheesecake belly might be the reason he's gonna overtake your role. You gotta be careful.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm still coming from, man. I'm gonna cut his hair off.
That's fucked up. This is a hair war, and I'm not supporting it.
Hey, man, this is a cutthroat business. I'm not here to be serving McDonald's burgers. No disrespect to McDonald's. I'm here to get the biggest role I can. So if I got to do some things, because I know the FBI's watching. So
if they find this podcast, you're done.
Yeah, I'm cooked. I'm getting dropped. I'm going to be the new Jonathan Majors. Oops. No.
All right, moving past Jonathan Majors. Last question for you. All right,
let's do it.
There's a couple people that I sort of pseudo know who are either in an acting space or primarily a voice acting space. That's typically where I tend to see a lot of people that I like, and I usually try and just have discussions with them, just being like, voice acting and regular acting is an incredibly competitive business where, like you said, for every 100 things you put in, you're going to get 98 no's, right? And it might not be until the last 2 even that you get those yeses. So I guess just from your perspective, in your opinion, what do you think are some good ways to help people sort of leverage the competitive nature of acting or voice acting and whatnot? And how do you think that they might be able to either get started or break into an industry like this, especially if they're a person who thinks that they do have the necessary qualities to be able to make it happen?
Absolutely. Great question. I think that's something even to this day, I'm always trying to refine and learn because, I'm still young and I'm still young in my career. So I have a lot of things I'm going to learn and I'm still learning. But I would say, I remember when I first met with my first agent, I sat in his office in Woodland Hills, Kim Kardashian, not joking. She's upstairs and we were having a conversation. He's like, look, you're going to do things that you never thought you'd do. Not in that respect, all right? But he was like, you're going to go, I'm gonna send you for auditions you didn't think you'd go out for. I'm going to send you for commercial work, voiceover work. And I knew all of this stuff, but I never done them before. And he said, it's not because I don't think you will be good in in just TV and film, but you got to make money. So, for me, I actually started loving voice acting, and it's something that I really haven't put 100% too much focus on right now because that's not my main focus. But I get some incredible auditions, and it's something that in theater class and even after college, I've taken classes in. Acting, the end is one part of the entertainment industry. Voice acting is acting. Commercial acting is another medium. TV and film is the biggest, but commercial work is just as big. Voiceovers even bigger. So, you got to find ways to, stay busy. And most actors, most entertainers aren't going to make their bread and butter and their main focus when they first start. So, in order to start, you have to start learning the basics. You have to take classes. You have to train. And I don't mean you have to go to Stella Adler or the most refined school on the planet. You can start at your local community theater. You can start at your college if you're in college. If you're not, you can look up a local college. You can look up classes in your medium and just learn the basics. Because one of the biggest things in this industry, when you're a newbie, you have to get experience in order for people to see you and take you seriously. So if you want that big commercial agent, if you want that big voiceover agent, you have to start getting those repetitions in first because they're not going to take you in if you don't have anything to compete with. So, getting those classes, learn industry terms, learn the business. And I stress that a lot. People always focus on the acting, the actual art of it. But learn the business. Learn what in perpetuity means in a commercial, because that right there might be able to ruin your career if you decide something like that. Learn what an agent is. Learn what a manager is. Learn the basics of your craft first, and then really start honing in on And like I said, this is not one cut fits all. You can learn the business while you're also out there building in the resources. So, one of the things, it'll be easier for me to do it this way because I could go on the whole spiel on how you start.
We could be here for another hour and a half for crying
Yeah.
out loud.
Let's just wrap this into an easier way of dissecting it. So, I went to high school for acting. I got my high school. I got my theater degree with a minor in dance. I took that. I went to college. I did. I majored in the theater. Got my BA in theater, and I took that. Once I graduated, I started taking TV and film classes because theater is, again, that's another thing. Theater is part of the entertainment industry. Look at Broadway. A lot of Broadway actors make tons of money. So I started in theater, but I knew that I wasn't going to make a lot of money in theater because I don't sing. I could dance, but I can't sing to save my life. So I had to take classes, and I had to learn and understand TV and film. While I was taking classes, I was doing background. That's how I met a lot of celebrities. One celebrity in particular, I'm blanking on his name right now. That's why I'm trying to. John Voight. That's what I met. John Voight. I remember he giving me this opinion, piece of advice. He said, "Take all of these opportunities, learn from it, and make it a priority to learn this business, pay your dues, and grow. And in order to get where I'm at, you're gonna have to put in the work. You have to put in the work. It's going to be a lot of free work. There's going to be a lot of unpaid work. There's going to be a lot of long days. There's going to be a lot of sacrifices you got to make. But in order to get to where your favorite actor or whatever celebrity is, you have to get to that point where you can get there. And in order to get there, you're going to have to show people you're capable of doing a job." So I was doing a lot of background for like a year. I didn't do it too long, but I did a lot of background. I learned what it's like to be on a TV and a movie set, because trust me, it's not the same as being on a student film. But even while I was doing that, I was booking TV. I was booking little student films. I was getting small roles in indie films, and then eventually, as I started getting my footage, I was able to start getting bigger roles in bigger feature films and web series. And I took those footage and scenes that I was able to get. I put a reel together, and I built my resume up. And then it became easier to book more work, get an agent. And eventually, once you get an agent, you get those big opportunities. And then eventually, once you start booking those opportunities, now you get to level up. And I could go on a tangent for 30 minutes, and I know people don't want to hear that. So, in short, learn the business. I think that's, if anybody takes anything away from this, learn the business, because it will help you in your career. Because I can shout it from the rooftop how you do it step by step, but until you really understand what this business is, you really won't know how far you can go. So, don't go the route of, I'm gonna quit my day job and work on these unpaid films without no footage for years. Make sure you get the bang for your buck. So take some classes, learn about SAG-AFTRA, learn how you are able to join the union, learn about agents and managers and how you get them, learn how you get footage, learn how you book, learn about these casting sites, Backstage, Actors Access, Casting Networks, LA Frontier. Learn about the big platforms, learn about how you get involved, learn how to self-cement. But realistically, if anything else, learn about the real, resume, and headshots. Because without those three, you ain't getting nowhere in this business. I don't care how nice you think you are, how talented you think you are. If you don't have those three calling cards, you will not get far in this industry, in this business. So get those three things, take classes, learn the industry, and eventually, once you start making work and stuff, it'll become easier to kind of navigate things.
All right, incredible. That sounds like some good advice. I don't know that I'm going to use it because I don't think I'm the acting type, but that's not important. That's not for me. That's for everybody else, and that's just
But I'll tell you this: it's I'm not going to go on a whole tangent. I'm not going to be one of those guests that go on 15 long tangents. But no matter what industry you're in, whether it's entertainment, whether it's rapping, my little brother is doing rapping, music industry. It's all about, you got to pay your dues. Those are the core principles in any industry, whether it's finance or entertainment. You have to pay your dues, and you're going to do a lot of free work. You're going to do work you don't really want to do. but you have to prove yourself and you have to learn. And trust me, I'm telling you, as someone who, I'm seeing these big opportunities that I once wish I had just a sniff, just to look at. Now I'm able to audition for these things, and I'm telling you, once you start doing that, it changes your psyche and it changes your energy. Like, honestly, ever since I got the audition a couple days ago, I've been on a high, not that type of high, but like,
It's not legal there yet.
yeah, but go in my hallway, you'll smell it. But like, I've just been feeling amazing, incredible. And it's not because I don't know if I get the role. I really don't. But I know that I'm finally getting to the place. I remember like yesterday, I remember begging one of my friends about that. I'm like, yo, how do I get like you, man? You on Netflix, you got this going on. Like, how do I get there? And now I'm knocking at the door for it. And so, whether, just work on be confident, know that it's going to be hard. It's a hard industry to make a career in. And, I've met a lot of incredible people, successful or not. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take risks. One successful entertainer, I remember he was doing Uber Eats when I met him, and he was still on TV. And there's no shame in that. We all got to pay our dues at some point. And so don't be afraid to take risks, take a bet on yourself, gamble, and always be optimistic, because you never know when your opportunity is going to come. So just be ready for it. So when it does come, you're not shocked, you're not flabbergasted. You want to make them, Rob Schneider and James Gunn, when they call you, you want them to beg you, not you begging them. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. No, that's an incredible way to end it off. That's the incredible words of wisdom, incredible stories, incredible everything. I expect nothing less from the Prince of Fresh Air. So really, I appreciate you coming on. Really, it's been incredible.
Yeah, that's why they pay me the small bucks, man. And I'm struggling now. You got $1 I can hold? Yeah,
I don't even know what my wallet is, dude. I can't help you.
You got Venmo. Come on, you got your phone.
That is true. Yeah, just email me your Venmo address afterwards. I'll send you a couple dollars for your time.
We'll do that.
No, genuinely, no. It's been incredible for you being here. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's been a little while. We've both had our own things that we've been incredibly busy with, but it's been incredible. And I mean, really, where can the people find you? Whether it's the Jubilee stuff, whether it's your own content, whether it's places you've been, anything. Give them everything.
Well, no, if you don't know where to find me at this point, where have you been? No, I'm kidding. I'm a humble guy. So I say this all humbly. If you ever want to find a podcast of Prince of Fresh Air, just type it in Google, or you just go to whatever platform you use, whether it's YouTube, Spotify. But always just say type in Google, because I'll have everything, all my links, all my website stuff. Instagram is probably the easiest way. Mr. No Days Off Percy. You can find podcast stuff on there, find latest news on my journey, and you can also find news articles I've done in my bio. So Instagram has everything that you can need, all my links, all my resources, and like I always say, a helping hand is a better hand. It's not just a way of life, it's a slogan. Oh, I should also mention too, by the way, because I'm stupid. You can also, because I'm Percy Brown. If you type in Percy Brown in Google, Percy Brown actor, you will find all my information as well. So like I said, I'm always willing to have new faces on, new voices, and I'm a humble man. I'm always grateful to have Mr. DJ Cereal Sauce. And it's funny because I didn't remember, like when you hit me up, I forgot it was you, because it's been for so long. I've been dealing with so much.
Right.
It's like, for me, I always try to keep in contact and stay friends with people I love working with. And I'm always grateful to come on a wonderful podcast, wonderful platform like The Eye for Talent, DJ Cereal Sauce, because the most charismatic man is not a one podcast man. He's all over the place. He can't be stopped. So,
yeah, exactly.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on, man, especially on a beautiful Sunday where I should be eating cheesecake. I'm here.
He's going to have his post-podcast cheesecake, and the payoff is going to be incredible.
Exactly. Well, you're serving me a few calories, so I'll take it.
All right, that's fine. That's good. Yeah, I guess on that note, if anybody wants to see where they can find me, the good news is that I have a link tree linked everywhere. I really do mean everywhere. This podcast, YouTube, Twitch, everything, there's a link tree somewhere. I also have the benefit of having a unique enough name that you can search up DJ Cereal Sauce on the internet, and you'll probably find something. YouTube, Twitch, Ko-Fi if you want to commission me for some music. This podcast, what else? There's probably some other stuff associated with my name, but you find one thing, you find the link tree, and you find everything else. So that's where you can go to find everybody. You'll find all the links in the bottom of the podcast description. And with that, honestly, I think I need to go get a little bit of fresh air myself.
That's copyright infringement. I want my money.